Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 1-0 podcast. I'm Joel Haas.
I'm Lyle Allenstein.
I'm Lexi Linderman.
Today, we'll recap Penn State's performances at the Combine, or performance, just one. And then we can transition into Penn State's Competitor of the Day winners, kind of talk about that and what it might mean for the team heading into the season. But guys, to kick it off, Jaylen Reed had a pretty impressive performance at the Combine. What were your guys' main takeaways from that?
Yeah, so obviously he was the only guy that really recorded numbers. Honestly, I think he raised his stock a little bit. 4.49. Obviously, the unofficial was 4.5 was the initial reaction. Or not reaction.
Dude, he actually messaged me. I tweeted the video of him running, and I was like, Jaylen Reed clocks a 4.50, and he DMs me and was like, it was actually a 4.49. And I was like, okay, I got you. So I quote tweeted it and was like 4.49 officially.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Glad he's out here.
He was making sure that everyone knew.
Yeah.
That's big. And then he tweeted, I thought I was slow.
Yeah.
So that's, 4.49, I think that definitely helped the stock because that was a knack on Reed externally from scouts, from what I've been reading, that he is slower. So that's a good time. Vertical jump, 33.5. That's, solid numbers. Bench press, 19 reps, 225. I mean, I'm doubling that personally myself. Sorry, Jaylen.
You guys will be able to see that. We're going to do our own Collegian Pro Day coming, I don't know, a couple weeks, but stay tuned for that.
I don't know who we is in this, but yeah.
Lexi will be there.
No matter what, she will be there. Then 9-inch hands?
9-inch hands, very
9-inch
important.
hands. I don't know where that stacks up to me, so I don't have a comparison for that, like the bench press. But yeah, it was good stuff. I think they collectively used graded on like an average athleticism score. I don't really know what that data actually looks like, but he made the Combine all defensive team. So I guess clearly he did enough to get some recognition there. It was one of two safeties that made it alongside Malachi Starks of Georgia, who I think is first round pick. Honestly, yeah, one of the better safeties in the country this past season. So that's, good company to be in. I think definitely helped his case. He talked about it when he had his media availability. Obviously, we weren't there, but he talked about how, the same agenda he's been pushing all during the regular season when we were able to talk to him was that he felt like he was being slept on, underrated. A lot of his numbers kind of stacked up to guys like Malachi Starks, Caleb Downs, though he wasn't really getting the kind of attention he deserved. Obviously, I think this is going to help him. He's always been a good interview from when we've talked to him, so I'm sure he did pretty well in those pre-draft interviews. A lot of projections had him. He talked about, he's like, I'm seeing it myself in the 6th, 7th round, and I'm like, I don't get it. He talked about, from his understanding, what he sees the teams that he's been interacting with. He's a day 2 pick, which I would not be surprised at all. So I think helped his case. It's a good performance.
Yeah, I think he could end up being not like a steal in this draft, but I think definitely a guy who people don't really focus on, but is putting up these good numbers at the Combine, put up good numbers throughout the regular season. I mean, obviously he had some tackling issues that we saw in a couple games, but other than that, I think he's a good prospect. I think he's going against the best in the Big Ten, and he's definitely holding his own. And I think, like Lyle said, he was putting up numbers like Caleb Downs, Malachi Starks, and obviously making the first team all-Combine defense is good for him, good praise for him. I mean, I don't really know how much that means, but, it just kind of shows that, I'm sure that for him, that was, huge for him, where he felt like he was finally getting the respect he deserves. But, yeah, I think 4.49, very good for him. I think, like Lyle said, I just think overall Combine performance definitely helped his draft stock. And I think he could definitely be a sleeper day 2 pick for sure, and I think he could end up being a really good safety in the NFL, at least I think so.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by the 4.49, honestly. I think you guys touched on it a little bit, and it seemed like he was pretty surprised by that number as well, which I thought was interesting. But I keep going back to that Oregon game, Tez Johnson specifically was kind of cooking him all game, and kind of cooking the entire Penn State defense. It was great. Who, by the way,
a 4.55,
his
right?
Combine performance and I forget what he weighed in at. He was 160 and 5'9".
I thought
He was 154, which is less than me, which is insane. But his athleticism score on the NFL website was a 74.
Are you trying to say not enough college football teams took a shot at you?
At me?
Yeah.
Well, I think I still have 1 year if anyone wants to give me a shot.
This is the COVID year, I assume, because, with all
Yeah.
these eligible. Okay, yeah.
Well, I get my grad transfer, so I can hop in whenever. Stay tuned for that announcement. Follow me on Twitter if you want to be the first to know about that. Yeah, Jaylen Reed's athleticism score, at least I don't know how they calculate it, but they had him as a 66, which ranked 17th among all safeties at this year's combine. But they also gave Abdul Carter a score of 90, which ranked first, and he didn't even do anything.
Checked
Like
out.
they didn't even measure his hand. Like he had no measurements at all from the combine. I want to know the neck measurement, but that would be very interesting to me. That's a good measure of like a linebacker or a defensive end. The bigger the neck, they're just going to be better.
Okay.
Well, he has that.
No, he
So-
does have that. That's why he's going to go number 1 overall potentially.
He doesn't play linebacker anymore.
Right, but linebacker or defensive end.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear that.
Oh.
Here we go.
Yeah, and that's it. That wraps up Penn State's combine.
Well, I mean, Abdul didn't
Yeah.
test anything, but we
there
did.
was still some info,
Yeah,
dropped.
we did
the
get that-
stress reaction.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, the stress reaction in his foot that was obviously reported, and there was a chance that he was going to have surgery to repair that, and then got evaluated by doctors. They said no surgery required. So it sounds like he's not going to get surgery and is just preparing to go at pro day. What did he say? 90%.
90%.
When
Well, that
I
was
asked him.
before when he had his availability. It was before that like string of reports came out, like by Schefter. He said he was at 90%. Yeah, I mean, like we saw whatever. We were there when he got hurt. We were there when he played against Notre Dame and with one arm, one hand, whatever. Tweeted about Darth Vader, and he did it again once these reports balked a tank. It was back. Like it doesn't matter if he tests or not. Obviously, surgery, whatever. When that report came out about Schefter, it was if he went through with the surgery, he was going to be out for like 8 weeks, or he can continue to test at pro day. Like it doesn't matter what path he was going to take. He's not falling outside a top 5 pick.
He's falling to number 6. I feel like that's a whole different conversation. That's just like, yeah, to the Raiders. Anyway, but that's like, whatever. Keep going.
Yeah, like I don't think he needs to test at pro day like in March. Like I would not be surprised if he doesn't. He doesn't have anything to prove. Like it's like it can only hurt him. Like, but he's not going to get hurt because we know what kind of athlete he is. He's got that athleticism score that they crafted out of absolutely nothing, as far as we're aware. But when I look at the other side of things, like Tyler Warren didn't test either. I mean, no need for him. Like he's got the tape. Like I don't think he's like I think he's going to be he could be a top 10 pick. I don't think he falls later than middle teens.
Have you seen like the Colston Loveland like there's like a small amount of people or like draft analysts who are saying like Colston Loveland's the better tight end,
which is ridiculous. Like, and you see Harold Fannin, who,
yeah,
like, come on,
Well, did you see the tight end who had like the false start on his 40 and like sprained his ankle?
did not. See
Yes,
facts.
I did.
He like
I
false
did.
started, so like they didn't like shoot the gun or whatever, and so like he had to like stop and pull up, but he like there's like a really bad video where like his ankle like all the way up, and then it like balloons up to like a melon, and then he runs through. He still does the 40 and goes through every drill, and he finished with like one of the worst like combine scores ever,
Poor
like
dude.
one of the lowest. But like he was running the whole thing on like a watermelon ankle. It was like it was bad. So I guess that's why you don't do the combine if you're a guy like Tyler Warren. You don't want to
like,
get
yeah,
injured.
Yeah, and Tyler Warren also played 16 games. Like his season just ended a month ago. Like his body's probably still recovering. There's no need for him to like. He has nothing to prove anymore. Like, and he'll probably test a little bit at pro day.
like yeah,
anyway,
like what's
so.
the worst thing that happens at pro day? Like realistically, like he's gonna catch the ball. I'm sure athletically he'll test fine. Oh, his 40 is 0.6 of a second slower than what was like. He's a top pick. You got your name Saints, Broncos, Colts, like Bengals. Potential reunion with Mike Gesicki there. Like he's a surefire first round pick. He got that. It was reported by Jordan Schultz. He already had the green room invite. Like no need for him to test. KJ we knew wasn't really gonna test. When that first report came out, I believe that was also Adam Schefter. Just about his injury status. He clarified that to the national media. Like why he didn't play this year. Mentally he learned that he was ready to go. He thought he was ready to go last year to declare the NFL draft. Obviously I talked to him post game. I think it was after Boise State. Told me all this, but yeah,
we knew that. All the national
come
outlets,
on, I was
all the big
in the
national
mix.
outlets were like picking it up, like breaking news. Kevin Winston said he suffered this
Just
injury, and we were like,
see.
yeah, we had that, guys.
I mean, yeah,
But,
I mean,
all right.
Kobe King, I think he participated, but he didn't like do any of the drills with actual mattered,
Yeah, I mean,
on field.
why not? Get the free merch, show up, and then just don't run.
Like it doesn't matter.
Like you get a free trip to wherever, Florida or wherever it's held, but.
wasn't it
Indianapolis?
Oh, you're right. I don't know what I was
Yeah,
thinking of.
what a gorgeous place to
It's
go
okay
visit.
though. Keandre Lambert-Smith, What did he run? He didn't run like a 4.38.
He was a 4.38. Yeah, that's. I mean, I think we always knew he had that kind of speed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you guys think he gets drafted? I think maybe late day 2,
Yeah.
early day 3.
Yeah, maybe like 4th, 5th round. I think is what I'm thinking.
I mean, he had in his availability, he said a lot of his meetings, unofficial, official, with all these like different like representatives. They asked him why he transferred from Penn State. Then he said like that was the most asked question he got. His answer was just like pretty much he needed like a new change of scenery, whatever. Obviously, we had dealt with that whole situation last year before the spring game. Obviously, declined to speak to the media. Peach Bowl. I thought it was interesting how he said he was rooting for Penn State in the national championship, but when all the tweets about the wide receivers getting 0 catches, he jumped on that right away. I forget what the exact thing he said was, but like, oh, like
It was like, yeah, or like someone owes me an apology.
yeah,
or
something like that.
But it was like, I don't think he had any catches in the Peach Bowl like the year before.
No,
No.
he had
So
he had
it's
four.
like-
He had like 4 targets over the last like 2 games or something, or like vice versa. 2
Yeah.
targets over the last 4 games. Yeah, so like whatever. He had a great year at Auburn. Like I'm not gonna disagree. They had 2 5-star wide receivers over there, freshmen, and I think he had double-digit touchdowns, went over 1,000 yards. Like I think he's an NFL player. Like he's a middle day 3 pick, day 4 pick. There's not 4 days, but anyway,
Day 4 pick.
he's a day 3
So
pick,
undrafted.
middle rounds. Yeah, I mean, like I think he benefited his stock because you saw how many passes went to Tyler Warren this year. Wide receivers improved, didn't really do much. I mean, he also, I believe he said something about like the only reason he didn't. It was like, I'm paraphrasing here, but like he stayed to get his degree before he transferred. So I thought that was also interesting. Obviously, I think during like those February, March availabilities, like because the spring games like end of April, like there's a lot of praise, like a lot of good things being thrown his way. Obviously, I think that Julian Fleming transferring in had something to do with it, regardless if you wanted to say it or not. Not like that really panned out for Fleming. We'll see him at Pro Day, see if he can work anything up. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can move on from combine performances, talk a little bit about these Penn State Competitor of the Day honors that have been rolling out on social media. All the position coaches, basically for every day of winter workouts. I believe it's 8 days. They'll pick each day kind of, the player who stood out to them, showed the most effort at practice. I would, even before we get into this, I would just warn not to really read too much into this. I went back and looked at last year's winners, kind of what we saw from them, and it's just it's pretty random. There's not really a correlation between who wins and kind of what they do throughout the regular season, but it's still some decent info to kind of see, and it's especially interesting when you get kind of freshmen or transfers winning. I think that can tell you a little bit. But is there anything that you guys noticed specifically about the winners through the first 3 days?
I think I'll start with, like you said, the transfers. Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross won the first 2 winter workouts of the competitor of the day for the winter workouts. I think that's telling. Again, not something you want to read into, but I think that's a strong start. They haven't played football yet in theory. Like I'm sure they've thrown the ball around, whatever. But if you're setting the tone right away, making that impression, catching Marcus Hagan's attention, I think that's important for just how people perceive this wide receiver room. Like who knows if they're just handing them out to let people know. Like we don't really know how this works, obviously. But winter workouts, like this is a grueling time of the year, right? This is, from what we understood, this is actually like the worst time of the year.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and they're coming in, they're competing, they're making like we saw them like walking around the Explorers program, and it seemed like they were getting along. So I think that says something. We have no idea how this wide receiver room is going to turn out to be. So I think those are 2 names that everyone wants to turn out, like to see pan out. So I think that was my first takeaway. And then I wanted to look at the other wide receiver, that one, Peter Gonzalez. I genuinely think he's a dark horse to contribute. We have no idea actually what his timeline is after missing all of 2024. But this is a guy who recovered from an ACL injury in high school, worked really hard to get Penn State on board. Obviously, he got a verbal offer, but he had to prove a lot coming back from his injury, and he did just that. He's Central Catholic's all-time receiving leader, and I don't think he'll contribute this year. I think if you see some portal exodus,
Do you think like over under 100 yards?
Under.
like my thing is like there's an opportunity for him if like we see some guys depart, maybe some injuries. Like I think we're looking at the 2026 season. I think he's a really good player. Obviously, I think you guys both talked to him. at second-year media day. Just good head on his shoulders. Like, he knows, like, having an injury in high school and having a dad who's played in the NFL, like, going through that whole process of everything.
And having another injury.
Yeah,
once
it's just
you
like,
get to college.
like
yeah.
you learn a lot about yourself through that process, which is what I took away from that. And I don't know. Down the road, I think he's going to be a really good, big contributor. Short term, unless portal injuries open up, we'll see. But yeah.
I think obviously Elliot Washington winning the first three kind of stands out. Obviously Jaylen Kimber is off to the draft, but I think there's a ton of cornerbacks and that James Franklin's confident in, and I think that it's interesting that like Elliot Washington is kind of just like continuing to win, which obviously not putting that much stock in these, but I think three-peating at the beginning is kind of interesting. And then Zeyda Fisher winning the first defensive line one, I think is huge for Penn State's defensive line, just because obviously he missed all of 2024 with an injury, and I think the expectations were kind of high for him coming in. I think people want to see him contribute this upcoming season with alongside Deni, especially with, Max Scramble still just being a redshirt freshman, and then there's a Nye White who transferred in. It's kind of just up in the air who's really going to replace Abdul Carter, so I think a lot of fans are banking on Zeyda Fisher, and, Lyle wrote a story about that if you want to check that out. But yeah, so then that. And
Thanks.
then also, you're welcome. And then also, I think for a fan base that is so interested to see how they replace Tyler Warren, Luke Reynolds going 2 of 3 in the tight end room, I think is a good sign, just because he talked to second media about how he's ready to take on the role that Tyler Warren had. And I think, honestly, like, obviously Khalil Dinkins is still in the room, but I think Luke Reynolds is going to make a very, very, very strong push to be that tight end one. I think this is kind of like the start of that in this sense.
Yeah. So 2 things on that. First of all, Elliot Washington sweeping the first 3 cornerback awards, I think is interesting because I think you see different coordinators take different approaches to how they give out these awards, where some guys treat it more like a participation award where they get through the 8 days and it's 8 different players. And it's like they just kind of want to shout out everyone and like make sure everyone gets some love. But for Terry Smith, it's like, nope, like you got to come earn it. And it's like you have to beat out Elliot Washington. Like he's clearly established himself. And that's big because obviously Penn State's, losing a cornerback and they're going to look to replace him after Jaylen Kimber leaves. Elliot Washington is, squarely in that conversation. I think Davian Collins is the other guy to watch there. For that battle for kind of that third corner spot. But and then the other thing I just wanted to touch on, Luke Reynolds at tight end, like you mentioned, 2 of the first 3 competitor of the day winners. And obviously we kind of saw flashes last year of what he can be. I think he's definitely in position to take over, kind of replace Tyler Warren. And I don't know, like, this might be insane, but I feel like he could be just as good as Tyler Warren when it's all said and done. Like,
Okay, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say
agree.
next year, and then I was going to be...
No, like over over the next couple seasons collectively, but yeah, I think I'm really high on what he can do. I put out this was over a month ago, but I put out predicting Penn State's starters for the next season, and I had to redo it a couple times because I forgot about King Mack transferring back and a couple things. But I had Luke Reynolds as the starting tight end, and I didn't even think about that one. And then I had 3 or 4 people commenting and saying there's no way, and talking about everyone else who it was going to be, and everyone was throwing out different names. So I don't know. I feel like the general public doesn't really view it that way, but to me at least,
For
I feel
Reynolds?
I feel like Reynolds kind of has that job right now, but I had a lot of pushback
okay.
on that.
Yeah, I think
from
it's
other
interesting.
people.
I feel like I think because obviously Khalil Dinkins has probably been waiting for years for Theo Johnson leave, and then Tyler Warren's leave, and then it's here's this 5-star freshman that is immediately making at least some kind of impact. And it's is he gonna take Khalil Dinkins' job? I don't know.
Khalil Dinkins is still a very good football player.
No, yeah, 100%.
This Penn State tight end room is just legit. It has been. The future of it is. Khalil Dinkins is a contributor. There's no going around. I just think Luke Reynolds brings way more to the table.
Yeah.
Khalil Dinkins this past year, we saw more finally in an expanded role. He was really, in terms of route running, he was, I think every catch he had in 2023, I think he had 4, and they were all 4th down conversions, and I think 2 of them were touchdowns. We got to see him more in blocking. I still think he's a contributor. And that just says the tight end room, Andrew Rappleyea is still coming back from injury, and we had heard a lot of praise about him. Andrew Olish, it's the same thing. 5-star, 4-star, he's composite 4-star, but the number 3 in the country obviously he just enrolled. This is another Luke Reynolds situation. This tight end room is very good. They could all contribute. The winter workouts doesn't matter. I think they could all contribute.
That's it for today's episode of the 1-0 podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. We'll be back with you in 2 weeks with another episode. But if you want more football content, you can find us at psucollegian.com and follow us on socials.